Hi, this is Christy with Guidepost to Wellness. Welcome back for all you return viewers, and welcome to anyone that's new. I am going to be talking today about how America sits too much. So I am promising you that I'm actually standing under a tree and not sitting, because that would be a little bit hypocritical. But I wanted to talk about this because there have been a couple of studies that have come out and talked about how sitting can actually be more dangerous than smoking. And as with any and every study, you have to kind of take a look at the material completely. So what they were talking about in there is how many years and how much time off your life sitting can take and different things like that. And I think we've got to take that with just a wee bit of a grain of salt. But the fact of the matter is that we do, as Americans and in the world in general, spend a lot of time sitting. Our current lifestyles have most of us sitting for about 9+ hours a day. And if you think about if you have a desk job, this is an average. So folks that have a desk job may be sitting even more. So I know, for example, I have a 10-hour shift with a 30-minute lunch when I'm working my full-time job. And then if I drive to work, then that's another 40 minutes in the car. And then I sit when I eat dinner. I sit if I'm watching TV, or if I'm not like sitting on the floor stretching and doing yoga moves or things like that. But that's a long time to be sitting during the day. And the thing is we don't actively sit like our ancestors. Our ancestors would sit more often. They would actually squat. So like if I go down and I'm sitting like this, and you can kind of see the way my legs are. And if I sit like this in a squat, try doing that for long periods of time. That can really kind of wear you out. But the interesting thing in some other studies that they've done is that the act of standing up in and of itself is what is better for us than just standing all day long. So for example, I have a standing desk, but just standing instead of sitting in one place is not going to be doing me as much good. So it's actually, we can help moderate and offset the sitting that we're doing all the time if we are moving and we're standing up a lot. So I think that that's important. Another thing that's important to note too, that sitting cross-legged with good posture forces you to use your core, and it's also better for your hips, because that's one of the things that can happen when we sit in a regular position with our feet down. When we sit like that, that can cause our hip flexors to really contract, and that can cause us stability issues and things with posture. So I think it's important to realize that physical inactivity in and of itself, and some of that includes sitting for long periods of time, is estimated to cost the world $70 billion a year. And that's a combination of healthcare costs and low productivity. And that has to do with the health conditions that they link to being inactive, ergo sitting for long periods of time. One of the obvious ones is the less we move, the less calories we burn, and that can be helping out with our obesity epidemic in the United States. It also can cause increased risk of diabetes, and they actually have studies that show that the more active people are, the less risk they have of dementia. So that is something to really consider, is making sure that we are moving and active as we age. And I know even my mom, for as much as she sat with her hip and her back problems and things like that, she still made an effort to get up regularly and move around, which I thought was really good for her to do. And speaking of as we age, if we are not weight bearing, which means literally bearing our weight on our bones, which comes from standing or any type of walking or exercise like that, then we are causing our bones to weaken and lead to osteopenia or osteoporosis. And then it also affects our ability to balance, and if we have poor posture, that can lead to fall risks. So one of the things, I took a Pilates class a few years ago, and the instructor talked about foot mobility and how critical that was as we age, because that's why some older people seem to have almost like a shuffling gait, is because they've lost the flexibility in their feet. And another plug for Get Autoimmune Strong is that Andrea definitely focuses on the feet. She has you doing things to increase the flexibility of your feet, from flexing your toes, sitting on your feet, toe raises, heel raises. She just incorporates that completely throughout her exercises, so she recognizes the value of having strong feet and ankles. The other thing with sitting, it can cause an increase in blood pressure and decrease the diameter of your arteries. So that's kind of a double whammy for affecting your heart. And the decreased arteries can also increase blood pressure, and then you've got, that feedback loop going on there. And then another thing to be concerned about too, and I know I've run into this problem myself, just having to get some therapy done on my shoulder based on your posture. And even if you don't necessarily have bad posture, mine was coming from mousing with my left arm and the way it pulled my shoulder and stuff like that. And doing that for long periods of time was actually causing imbalances posturally and causing me pain in my shoulder. But it can also cause tension headaches and back and hip problems as well. So another finding from a study shows that even if you exercise, in and of itself, exercising every day may not be enough to offset the high amounts of sitting that we do. Because for every 8 hours of sitting that you do, whether it's work or leisure, you have to have a good solid hour of physical activity. Now, come on, how many of us have time for a full hour of physical activity? And I'm talking about something that's going to raise your heart rate, get you, walking, moving all parts of your body. Most of us don't. And I think that's why you can see that the challenge of just exercising for 20 minutes a day or HIIT or yoga or anything like that may not offset the long periods of sitting. But what they found is what does offset it is actually moving more frequently. And again, as I mentioned, the act of actually standing up is what's using all of our large muscles in our lower extremities. So what they found is that if we stand up regularly and if we take short periods of movement, which is something that's just really good for us physically and mentally and emotionally. I know that when I get tied up doing some reporting and things on different days of the week, I can sit there and it'll feel like for hours before I take a break. So that's one of the things that we can all do to help ourselves, is to make sure that we are getting up and moving like my mom used to do. And like I'm working on doing by putting some notifications on my calendar and stuff, is to make sure that we are getting up and moving regularly. Because one of the challenges, like I mentioned, the hour a day, that can take some time to work up to. Even the challenge, how many of you have heard about the 10,000 step challenge? Even that can be really hard for people to work themselves up to. The average person only takes about 3,000 or 4,000 steps a day, which is about 2 miles. 10,000 steps can be 4 to 5 miles. So that's not something that you can just start immediately. But people don't realize that. I mean, people realize that if I want to run a marathon or something like that, then I've got to work up to it. But people think, oh, well, I can just start walking 5 miles a day, no problem. No, that's going to cause a problem. So as I've mentioned before, any new habit that you have, you want to start small with sustainable goals. And some of the ways that you can increase your moving and reduce the risk of the sitting all the time is by regularly getting up and moving every hour if possible. So set yourself some type of timer. I don't wear a fitness tracker unless I'm like hiking and trying to track my steps and distances and stuff. So, but if you wear one, I know a lot of them will trigger you if you haven't moved, an inactivity kind of thing. So you can have that trigger you to get up from your desk and go take a walk. And if you start doing that, you're going to naturally start increasing your steps. Another thing to do to increase your movement is park further away. If you're going anywhere, going to the store, I know some people are a little bit more restricted with the way things are and in society, but most places are opening up, so people are getting out, going to the grocery store, going to work, going to school, what have you. Park further away. plan a little bit of extra time so that you're adding in your steps as you walk to and from your automobile or the bus station or whatever, again, where you're going to be sitting. So try to incorporate that. So if we can incorporate standing up more regularly and adding in steps every hour, we're going to slowly start to get to that goal. And by the way, 10,000 steps is totally arbitrary. If you're walking a couple of miles a day naturally with your movement, and then you exercise as well, and you're not sitting as much, you're getting up and down, you're going to be doing just fine. It's all about gradually increasing your level of movement, but recognizing that we do sit a lot. So even if you're at home, whatever it is, make sure that you're getting up regularly. And if you want to just sit down and get up several times, that's going to be great. And then walk around, loosen up, stretch a little. All those things are going to be beneficial for you. And if you do that regularly, you're going to offset the amount of time that we do sitting, because we do sit a lot. That's just, our society is a little bit different in doing that. And if you also want to, try actively sitting, try squatting like I mentioned. So get down and, squat on your haunches there. See how that feels. Try doing that for a while. I know that you're going to feel it after a while, that's for sure. Or try sitting cross-legged, because that's going to open up your hips a little bit more, and sitting with that good quality posture. So give it a try. I'd love to hear your comments and hear how it goes.